An experimental pop music station has caused something of a stir in Melbourne's radio industry.
The most exciting thing coming back to this country was tuning into a radio station run by young people. It's called Hitz FM.
Youth radio Hitz FM took its fight for survival to Canberra today.
With little or no experience, the kids behind Hitz FM managed to embarrass the pros and capture an influential slice of the music market.
To get an idea of how popular Hitz FM has become and how quickly it's all happened, consider this.
A team of brash baby broadcasters is grabbing more of the music airwaves from commercial FM stations.
This station has quite obviously captured the imagination and support of Victorian youth.
It was during the now infamous third broadcast in a Moorabbin office space that Melbourne Radio witnessed an unprecedented shift in the listening habits of its youth as they voted with their ears and tuned in to 89.9.
Not having had anything like this ever before in Melbourne or Australia for that matter, we got something like 1,200 phone calls over those 9 days.
I think they were in the days when we didn't know what the reaction might be. So yeah, one phone line. No, do 2 phone lines. That'll look after us.
Go to pick it up to make an important call, and there was someone going, can I hear Michael Jordan? It was just like, get off our line. It was crazy.
The 4 or 5 phones were just ringing constantly, one after the other, and as soon as you put them down, they'd be ringing again. So the system just wasn't prepared to cope with something like that. And the hits actually blew up the Moorabbin Exchange.
I was very excited. I thought, gee, this is great. The impact is beyond what I thought. When I heard that, I was very happy. At the same time, a bit sad for the phone guys on the other end there at Telstra.
Yes, it certainly was exciting times back then for anybody associated with Hitz FM, volunteers and listeners alike. But there were some, however, who would have been happy to see Hitz take a very long walk off a very short pier.
The plug is about to be pulled on Melbourne's giant-killing youth radio, Hitz FM.
Some of the powers to be are trying to take this radio station off the air, but I think the youth of Melbourne certainly will react to that.
The commercial stations, through their peak body, FARB, the Federation of Australian Radio Broadcasters, I think they tried to kill off Hitz.
The government was changing policies all the time, purely because Hitz FM had been extremely successful in chasing the audience and ratings, and the commercial stations were putting a lot of pressure on the government to change the policies.
Once Hitz hit the scene, particularly after that big third broadcast, I think they knew they were in for a bit of a time, because Hitz was pulling the ratings in at that time.
The ABA, they shouldn't have allowed it to drift along to the situation we have now, where the licence was originally said it would be awarded in 95, and now it's 2000 and there's still no licence.
Oh, they are just the most bureaucratic department I've ever heard of. If there's one thing that really frustrates me, it's paper shuffling.
I think, when I look back at my life, that would have to be the most frustrating thing I've ever dealt with.
Pretty disappointed with the delays, but it's really no one's fault, because in 1993, the ABA put together a document called Planning Priorities.
I mean, we're in this terrible position where we don't really want to be saying our real feelings about the ABA, because they're pretty damn harsh, because we know that they're the ones who are listening and are going to be giving us that little piece of paper down the line.
Here we were working our asses off and obviously proving that there was a need and support for a radio station. And they just weren't interested in the Melbourne market at the time.
From my point of view, it was just hearing, we can only do this much time and that is it, because they're planning all this other part of Australia and they're going to do one part of Australia at a time. It wasn't all getting done at the same time. It felt like, well, is that the normal way they do it, or is it just an excuse?
But the reality is, if you ask people who are, say, no longer associated with Hitz, what they think of the ABA, they don't have to be minding their manners, and a lot of people just really wouldn't be very complimentary.
And when other stations followed, Kitz and KISS and the other string of aspirants that have followed, I think that has shown that this community radio movement now is so strong that little obstacles that are thrown in our way by the commercial radio stations aren't going to stop the aspirants from broadcasting.
3, 2, 1.
Well, Hitz may have been off air, but radio for young people, by young people, certainly wasn't. And it was at this point that Melbourne's radio and music industries were about to change forever.
I guess when Kicks started and subsequently Kiss, we were never competing with them on air, timing-wise. We were never on at the same time. But what it meant was that young people in Melbourne had more excuses not to listen to standard commercial radio.
The scene had not even been tapped into by Hitz and needed to. I mean, well, only the tip of the iceberg, your mainstream scene. But your underground scene hadn't really been given a go, and we thought, well, this is the place for it.
And definitely sent a message to the big boys that we weren't just on for 90 days. Here are a whole lot of bunch of kids who could keep the thing going, you know, for long periods of the time during the year. And yes, it helped each other, definitely.
It meant that there were going to be aspirants on those positions on the dial pretty much all year round. So they didn't just have to worry about little bursts here and there that they could try and stop with big competitions or something.
I think some of the aspirants, I have great respect for what they're trying to do, because they're trying to do what Hitz was trying to do. They're trying to do the same thing, they have the same sort of goals, but I don't think all the aspirants are there for the right reasons.
All the fanfare aside, Hitz FM's primary objective has always been to provide young people with an opportunity to participate in a fully operational radio station from the ground up, including administration, sponsorship, music selection, on-air presentation, etc, etc. During its 8 years, over 1,000 volunteers have contributed to make the station what it is, many of whom have gone on to bigger and better things in professional TV, radio and the media.
I didn't know anything about radio, and I guess that's one of the really good things about places like Hitz and other community aspirant stations, the fact that they train you and you get to really make all your mistakes.
We used to look forward to getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to do the news unpaid, and now I absolutely hate getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I get paid a hell of a lot more.
Daryl Summers rang me up for this job at Hey Hey. I'd known him through some work at the Herald Sun, but the reason he really got to know me was because I interviewed him on Hitz.
Having been involved with Hitz for so long, I think gave me so much radio experience that I would never have been able to get anywhere else.
It's amazing how successful so many of those people have been since they've left Hitz FM. I guess it gives you a taste of what you want to do and where you want to go.
So, the question is, what would Australian radio sound like if on that day in December 1992, Hitz FM had figured, well, it's just not worth it? We'll never know. But after so many years of test transmitting and being told by the Australian Broadcasting Authority that the licence will be awarded next year, what's the feeling going to be like if that full-time licence is awarded to Hitz?
I think that it'll be, for me personally, it'll be a very emotional time to reflect back on all the milestones that the station has achieved over the last 8, 9 or 10 years of its life.
It would just reward all the many thousands of hours and effort and initiative, creation and all the ideas that flowed from just a little group that started way back in 1992.
It would be sad that I'm not there, but a great thing, because I know there are a lot of people that have put so many years into the effort.
All those years that I put into Hitz FM have been a very important part of my life, and the whole driver behind Hitz when we went into it was, we can get this station going, we can get this thing off the ground, and we can actually succeed and get this station on air full time. That was the whole motivation, and to me, to actually see that fulfilled, that would mean so much.
It would just be a huge reward for just so much effort in the early days. I'd be the first to run down there and shake their hands and say, hey, well done. Finally, we've achieved something for all this work.
It would seriously be an extraordinarily emotional moment for me, because I've observed, most of the time when it's on air I'm observing, and sometimes I'm on the air, but I've seen it come from where it was right through, and the highs and the lows and the desperation and the frustration and the commitment of so many people. If that actually happened, it would be one of the greatest moments of my life. Yeah, it really would.